Okay, so hello, welcome back to another Blazor tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you about components. Components are at the core of Blazor and most web frameworks nowadays, where basically you write code that you're going to want to have in different pages or multiple times in the same page, which is essentially that you're going to have more than once. You put it into a component, and then you reuse that component throughout your application, and then you might decide, in this one place I want to change the font, or I want to add this new little bit in, and then when you add it to the component, it adds it everywhere, so it's really good, it saves you a lot of time, it makes your code a lot better, and I'm going to show you how to do that this video, so I hope you're looking forward to it. Let's get into the video. But of course, first I've got to thank my patrons. A special thanks to Some Hobo 101, Flow State Games, Average Morning, Luke Latham, Hades Zorko, Rene, Evgeny, Art Farrell, Budaray, and Marie Baldwin. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, the link to my patrons down below. If not, there are also links down below to my social media, such as Twitch, Twitter, Discord. And now I'm going to start advertising our website down below, so you guys can go, make an account there and go look through all the stuff we have on our website. We're currently, in development, so we're adding new features all the time. Like every 2 or 3 weeks, there'll be something new. And if you join our Discord server, you'll hear more about that. And if you also look on the website anyway, so I encourage you to go and make an account on our website and have a look around at what we got. Feel free to ask questions down below or in our Discord server about the website. Leave suggestions on it, just use all the features of it. It's there for you guys. Now let's get to the video. So the plan for this video is to make a component that we can render a book with. Now currently we render the book in here. The thing is, all over our application we might want to render a book, right? We might want to render a book so that we can look at our own books, other people can look at our books. We might also then want a component to be able to edit a book based on if it's ours. And then in certain places we might always want to be able to edit it. So we're going to want to make essentially a view component and an edit component, and then use those wherever it makes sense to. Now currently our project's very simple, so we're not going to do all of that this video. What we're going to do is we're going to make the component to view, we're going to use it in the page, and we're actually going to create some other projects to go in the solution that handle different things, because we don't want to shove them all in here. It gets really messy and it's hard to share the code. We want components that we can use in different parts of our website. Maybe we have different portals, like in our website, we have a student portal and a teacher portal, and there's certain components we want to use in both. We don't have to code them again, so because then if we have to make changes in one, we have to make changes in both, and it's a hassle. So and it's also error prone. So what we need to do is we need to make another project for shared code that we can share components with, and another project for shared code that aren't components, that are just normal C# classes. So we can share like the book model in different places as well. So let's start with that. So the first thing to do is to go up to Solution Blazor Tutorial. We're going to add a new item. No, sorry, not a new item. We're going to add a new project. And the project is going to be a class library. Okay, now we're going to make a Razor class library, the one with the @ that's the logo for Blazor, because we want to have components that can be reused elsewhere. So let's make one of these, and we'll call it Blazor tutorial. So the usual naming convention, at least that we go with, is the name of your project, so Blazor tutorial dot, and because it's a shared main class thing, we call it core, so it's core, and then we call it web.web because it's shared website stuff, right? Shared web page stuff. So we put that in there. We make this, and then we click create, and that'll take a second. Now we've got it down here. We've got some, stuff that it gives us by default. So let's get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. So now we're just left with this imports, which has a using in it. And essentially, if you have this imports file with a using, when it compiles, it puts this using in all the other things inside this project, which is handy because this components web one is like the built-in Blazor components, the ones that are already made for you. So we might want to reuse those, and we will want to reuse those at some point. So it makes sense to have them in all our things rather than manually adding them to each one separately. Technically, you could put like all your usings in here, but it would probably increase compile time. It'd just be like, it's waste time. This also gets really messy, knowing which ones you have and haven't added. So it's always better to have as few as you need. Only have what you need is what I'm trying to say. Now, this project, you'll notice, if we go to Properties, has a version of .NET Standard 2.0. Now, that's just how the Razor class library is. So this can only, code in this project can only reference code in other projects that uses this version, like this kind, .NET Standard. So because Blazor itself, like the project we're using, the website is a .NET Core 3.0, we can't actually reference, we can reference stuff in here, but this project can't reference stuff in .NET Core 3.0s. It's the other way around, right? Core can reference standard, standard can't reference core. So when we make a project now to store for example, our book class, like a database project basically to store all the models, we can't have that model be referenced buy anything. Well, basically, we need to make it in a .NET Standard rather than a .NET Core project, because otherwise we get into problems later down the line. So what we want to do is we want to make folders. So if we add a new folder, we'll make one called Web, which is for all our website projects in case we make other website projects. We might want like different portals for different things. Then we can go ahead and add a solution folder for DAL, which is our database access layer. It can have all the database stuff in there. And then we're going to add another one for core. Okay, so the core folder is, well, for the projects that are in core, the shared ones. Now, technically the database one's shared, so we could put core.dal, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. And then inside this folder, so we're going to put core web inside core, and the website itself inside web. And then in DAL, we're going to want to make a new project. We're going to want to make a new project. It's going to be another class library, but this time make sure you make a .NET Standard class library, right, the top one. And we're going to call it Blazor tutorial.dal. Create. And here we are. Now just let it load up the dependencies, whatever. Okay, and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so by default, this project, when it made itself, I've just realized, if I go back to the properties in it, it was in .NET Standard 2.0, which I apparently don't have, and it says this little yellow exclamation mark. Oh, wait, never mind. I changed it back and it works. Okay, it just hadn't initialized the setup, probably, I guess. Okay, you don't have to worry if you don't have that problem. If you did have the problem where class was red and system was red, just swap it and swap it back, or reload the project or something. But anyway, it works now. So in here, we want to make a folder for our models. So we add a folder, models. And inside our models, we can add another folder for books. And inside books, we're going to want to put our book class from earlier. So we go to our data and find the book. We're going to drag it in. And now we're going to change the namespace to be .dal, .models, .books. Okay. Put it in its own place. So if we add more stuff in here to do with books, we can put it in this books folder. But for now, we're just fine with a book. Maybe you want to add a library, right? Or something along those lines. It's up to you. For now, we're going to go with this. So we close it. Okay. And that's all we really need to do in DAL, to be honest. It's just storing the model. Now, we have core web. And we also want a core, just a core, basically, to have shared code normally. So we're going to want to go into core and add a new project. I keep pressing M. Add a new project. And this project is going to be another class library. Okay. And this class library is going to need to reference stuff, for example... Well, we're going to need to use a .NET Standard one again, because if we use core, then we have problems with other things referencing the service. Because our components need to reference the core things, we can't make this a higher version, we have to make it a lower version, which is .NET Standard. And we're going to press next, and we're going to call it Blazor tutorial.core. Create. And now we have the core, and we can get rid of the class. And to be honest, I feel like it's going to give me the same problem it just did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say right-click properties and change to 2.1 and then change back. Okay. I'm just going to save all. Go back to here. And there's no error anymore. Okay, cool. So in core, we can make a folder called services for our services. In services, we can make a folder for books. And in here, we can have the book service. So let's go drag the book service over. Blazor tutorial.core.services.books. Okay. Now this needs to know about books. So if you notice here, it says add reference to Blazor tutorial.dal. Essentially, this project needs a reference to the DAL project. So sure, do it for me, right? Just click the button, it does it for you. Cool. So now we can reference the book code in this other project. Okay. Minimize this. Close it down. And if we go over here now, we can get rid of book. We don't need it anymore. We can get rid of book service because we moved it. Weather forecast, and we can get rid of all this data stuff, right? It's all out of here. If we go to the startup, though, you'll notice, one, we're missing the weather forecast service, but I don't care because that's one of the built-in examples. We're going to get rid of that now. But it doesn't know about the iBook service or the book service. So we need to say add reference to core. So now this web one references core. And it's all neat and tidy. It all works. Cool. Personally, I'm not a fan of like having all these comments in here, so I'm just going to quickly get rid of these. Okay. Now that's all set up. Notice how we have a reference to core services books, and we've got it here. So I don't think any code is complaining now. Technically though, if we go to shared, the nav menu is meant to take us to this page, where is it? Fetch data. But fetch data is the weather forecast thing we don't want anymore, so we can get rid of that. That's one other thing to get rid of. And if we go to pages, the actual fetch data page can go now. So we're cutting down a lot now. So all we're really left with is the home page and the book page we've made. And then also counter. If you want counter, we can have counter. But I'm going to get rid of counter. I'm going to start actually making this our own website, right? Get rid of all the examples. I know I've already got a routing example I made earlier, but at least keep my examples, not the ones that are left with Microsoft when they made it originally. So we go back to shared nav menu. We can also get rid of the counter. Okay. If you ever want to add a link to your page, just copy paste a list item and paste another one in, and then change the data on it, like the href, to be the URL of your page, the redirect. But yeah, finally we were left with our book page, but all this stuff here needs to be moved out. The rendering for the book component needs to be made inside core web, which I'm going to do in a second. And then the actual service is done elsewhere as well. So I'm just going to do a break here and we can get to it in a second. The first job is to make the component and actually render it, right? So in core web, we can make a new folder again. And this folder in web is going to be called books. They're all the book components, right? Okay, sorry guys, I had some problems like making the component, and I found out the only way it's really going to work, even if we rename it, it apparently doesn't work. We have to reopen the project. So the easiest way is to actually add, instead of a new class, you add a new item, and then you just use the razor component base like this. And then if you give it a second, it actually works. So in here, we want to have a parameter. So obviously it works now. And the parameter is a public book, okay, like so. And we still need to have the using to know what a book is. So if we just go up to the top, at using, and in the component, we can say Blazor tutorial dot core. Sorry, this is for the book model. So we need .dal dot models dot books. Okay, so to get this using, to actually work, to get this book, like it doesn't know what this is, right? We need to say for the core web, add a reference to DAL. Okay, we'll give it a second. And the book's here. So now we've actually got this book, we can render it in here. Now, I can't actually quite remember the HTML perfectly, but I'm pretty sure it's just a header with at book.title, and then we had two paragraphs. So we said P, and it was at book.overview, and another P at book.price. Okay, but we only want to render this if the book isn't null, because if the book is null, it'll give us an error saying we can't access the title if the book's null. So if the book is not null, then render this. Okay. And that's all we want, right? We want to pass a book in and show how to render it if it's not null, basically. So that's the component done. Just make sure we rename it, actually, to be the book view component. If we save and head out of here, this will work. If we put it to core web books, it's eventually gonna work. The book view component, and then build. There we go, it works now. Okay, and now that we've got the book view component and it's gone green, you'll notice if we space in here, there's actually one thing we can pass in here without the at thing, the book. We want to pass the book in, okay? So we're going to pass in book, the variable here, okay? So the actual job now of this page is just to grab the book from the book service, which it doesn't know. So we're going to have to add a using for that. At using Blazor tutorial dot core dot services dot books. Once we add the core services books, the iBook service works. We also need the book, so we need to say at using Blazor tutorial dot dal dot models dot books. Okay. And now that's working, right? So this page now gets a book and passes it into the component, and the component renders it. Okay. So the actual logic for rendering a book is now just here. Now, if we wanted to render two books, we could just add another book view component and pass in that other book. Okay. The reusability of it, there it is. And if we want to get books somewhere else and then display a book, we just do that and we pass in the book here. If we wanted a list of them, we could do a for loop and render loads of book components. But for now, this is all we want, right? We want to just pass a book into this component to be rendered. Okay. And notice how everything's all spread out and neat now. So if we just close all our projects and then, well, just open up these folders. So just remember, guys, the core is for just C# code that we share. The core web is for Blazor components that we share. Dal is for models only, so no logic, just database models that we're going to store, so like the book itself. And then the web are the actual web projects, okay? If you make any more web projects, put them here. Any more database stuff, put it here, but you probably won't. And then if you want any more like core shared classes in different places, you can put them there, right? So we've got services, but we might want to make you know, other things there for that. And we can also add tests at some point. We're going to do unit testing or TDD, test-driven development. I'll show you how to kind of use that and see if you like it or not. Some people do and some people don't. It's really just about whether you can get into it. I've got plenty of videos in Unity for that. But yeah, let's actually give our project a run and see if it all still works. Okay, so we spread all our code out into different areas of our project, and let's see if it all still works. So if we do /book/0, we get this book. If we do /1, we get this other book, /2, the other book, and then 3 doesn't exist, so we get redirected back to our homepage. Obviously, you can do whatever you want there, but I just thought redirecting to the homepage makes most sense. But yeah, that's it. So we've now laid out our project in a much more neat and organized way, a more professional way. It's so much more easier to deal with and reuse and add to it. So yeah, I hope you look forward to continuing the series as much as I do. Feel free to leave suggestions down below. I've already got some ideas of what to do anyway, so I'll probably get those done before I start taking actual suggestions for ideas, but feel free to let me know anyway, and I'll, you know, add them to a to-do list or a future ideas list or whatever. But yeah, ask any questions you want down below. Go make an account on our website. Follow, like, subscribe, all the stuff I said at the start. Please do it. It would help a lot. But yeah, I'll see you guys next video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.